The silence between scenes the studio was unusually quiet that morning. The kind of quiet that made people whisper even when they didn't have to. Bright lights hummed faintly above, casting long shadows across the empty set. Everything was ready. Cameras, the props, the crew, but something felt... different. It was like everyone was holding their breath. Ana de Armas sat on a wooden bench near the dressing area, her script resting loosely in her lap. She wasn't reading it. Instead, her eyes kept drifting toward Keanu Reeves, who stood alone near the edge of the soundstage. Staring at nothing in particular, he hadn't said a word since he walked in. Just nodded at the director and took his place, quiet as always. But this quiet wasn't like the others, Ana could tell. She'd worked with him long enough to know that Keanu's silence was never empty. It had weight, meaning sometimes it was patience, sometimes it was peace. But today, it was something else. "You okay?" she finally asked, her voice soft. Careful not to break the stillness too hard, Keanu turned slightly, offering her a small smile, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, just thinking." She nodded slowly, but she knew. He wasn't just thinking, he was carrying something. They'd been shooting together for weeks now. Scenes filled with action, intensity, and emotional depth. Keanu had always been a rock-steady, kind, humble, always helping others without asking for attention. But today, there was a crack in that calm. Not big, not loud. But it was there. The crew moved around them, setting up for the next scene. People talked, wires were adjusted, makeup artists hurried by. But Ana kept watching him. She remembered the night before. They had wrapped up late, almost midnight. As everyone left the set, Ana had caught a glimpse of Keanu in the parking lot, and sitting on his motorcycle, helmet in hand, just staring at the stars. She hadn't said anything then. Maybe she should have. "Keanu," she said again, her voice firmer. "This time, what's really going on?" He paused, then looked at her more directly. For a long moment, he didn't speak. And then, quietly, almost like he was asking permission from the air, he said, "Someone I care about is not well." That was it. It's no drama, no tears. Just a quiet truth that hit harder than any loud confession. Ana felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Keanu nodded. "Thanks." But even after saying it, he turned away again. His shoulders were still tense, his posture slightly off. It was like he wanted to stay strong, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. Ana stood up and walked over to him. She didn't say anything more. She just stood beside him, shoulder to shoulder, in that same silence he had been holding. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't forced. It was real. After a while, he let out a slow breath. "You know what's strange?" he said. "Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is just stay beside them, without saying anything." Smiled softly. "I know." That day, they filmed one of the most emotional scenes in the movie. A scene where their characters were supposed to show pain, love, and strength at once. And somehow, they didn't even need to act. It was all already there. When the director yelled cut, the entire crew went silent. Even the lighting technician. Had tears in her eyes? Ana glanced at Keanu. He wasn't crying, never did. But there was a softness in his expression, something warm and deep. Something honest as they walked off set. Ana gently placed her hand on his arm. He looked at her, surprised. "You don't have to carry it all alone," she said. He didn't reply, just gave a small nod. But in that moment, she knew exactly what. His silence had meant, and somehow, it meant more than any words ever could. A moment behind the curtains next day. The set felt brighter, but not because of the lights. There was something different in the air. Maybe it was the way the crew greeted each other, softer, more thoughtful. Maybe it was the way Ana walked. Onto the stage, glancing toward Keanu with quiet understanding. Or maybe it was simply the way Keanu looked back at her like he knew she had heard him yesterday, even when he barely spoke. They didn't talk much that morning. It's not because they were avoiding each other, but because words weren't needed. There was peace in the silence now, but that peace didn't last, just before the lunch break. The director called everyone in for a major reshoot. One of the emotional scenes from last week didn't feel real enough during the editing process. Producers wanted more depth, more truth. Anna's heart sank when she heard which scene it was. It was the one where her character broke down. Completely. And Keanu's character was supposed to hold her strong, silent, present. They had done it once already. But now, they had to do it again. Only this time, everything felt heavier. Anna stepped into her dressing room, closing the door behind her. She sat down and stared into the mirror. Her eyes were already glassy. Her thoughts a storm? She thought about her real life. The people who had walked out when she needed them the most. The long nights after auditions, the quiet cries when no one was watching. She had buried all of it, but now she would have to let it surface again. Meanwhile, Keanu sat alone backstage, holding the new version of the script, but he wasn't reading it. His mind was somewhere else. His phone buzzed on the table beside him. A message lit up the screen. "She's not waking up today either. Maybe tomorrow. We'll keep trying." He stared at the message. For a long moment, he didn't move. It was his sister. She had been in the hospital for weeks, slipping between moments of awareness and long hours of silence. Doctors said it could go either way. Every day, Keanu waited for anything that sounded like hope. He put the phone down and pressed his hands together. When Anna knocked on his door gently and stepped inside, she didn't ask questions. She saw the look in his eyes and simply walked over. She sat next to him on the couch. No makeup, no costume. Just herself. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not now, okay?" she said quietly. "Can I just sit here?" He nodded. They sat like that for several minutes. No words, just breath, stillness, quiet understanding. Finally, Keanu looked at her. "How do you do it?" "Do what?" "Get so raw, so real. When the cameras roll, it's like you open up everything." Anna gave a small laugh, the kind that sounded tired. "Because if I don't, the scene dies, and I can't let that happen." Keanu looked down at his hands. "It's just hard sometimes, being open. I've spent most of my life hiding what I feel." Anna placed a hand over his. "Maybe that's what makes you real, Keanu. You feel everything, but you carry it so gently." Keanu looked at her, his eyes glistening with unshed emotion. He didn't say thank you. He just held her gaze. When it was time for the reshoot, they stepped onto the set together. The cameras rolled, the lights dimmed, and the silence between them grew louder than ever before. Anna began the scene, tears welling up as she spoke her lines. Her voice cracked. Her breath trembled. It wasn't acting, it was memory, truth, vulnerability. And then Keanu stepped in. He didn't speak. He didn't act, he just was. He walked toward her slowly. She collapsed into his arms. For a long moment, he held her not like an actor holding an actress, but like a man holding someone he didn't want to lose. He didn't say a single line, but his silence was full of love, pain, strength, and something more. When the scene ended, there was a long pause. The director didn't yell cut. The crew didn't move. No one spoke, because they all knew something special had just happened. Something beyond the script, beyond the film, beyond anything they could plan. When Anna pulled away, she looked at Keanu's face. There were tears in his eyes, real ones, and in that moment, she realized he hadn't just been helping her. Through the scene, he had let himself feel. He had finally opened the door he kept locked for so long, and now he wasn't hiding anymore. The echo of unspoken things. Next morning, Anna arrived early on set. Too early. The sun hadn't even risen fully, and the streets were still half asleep. But she couldn't stay in bed. Something inside her felt unsettled, like a storm waiting in silence. Last night's scene kept replaying in her head, not because of her own performance, but because of Keanu. She had never seen him like that before, the way he held her, the way he didn't speak, the way his silence trembled, full of unspoken pain. He had finally let it through, And that scared her not because he was weak, but because she had always seen him as someone stronger than life. But now she knew, even the strongest break, even they carry quiet storms. She walked toward the soundstage, expecting to be alone. But Keanu was already there. He was standing by the craft services table, holding a cup of coffee, staring at the wall like it had a story he couldn't quite finish reading. He looked tired, not just physically dashed spiritually. Anna walked up and stood beside him. Couldn't sleep. She asked gently. Keanu shook his head. Not really. Me neither. They didn't need more words than that. The silence between them was comfortable now. Not heavy. Not awkward. It was shared. I keep thinking about that scene, Anna said after a while. The way you didn't say anything, but still said everything. Keanu took a sip of coffee. I didn't mean to break. It just came through. That wasn't breaking, she whispered. That was being real. He looked at her then. Really looked. And she saw the same expression from yesterday, not of sadness, but of someone who had been quiet for too long and finally felt safe enough to speak, even if only with his eyes. I got another message from the hospital, he said quietly. Anna's heart skipped, and she woke up. Anna gasped. She did. He nodded slowly. Just for a few minutes, said my name. Then went back to sleep. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly, not wanting to overwhelm him. That's huge, Keanu, she said. It means she's fighting. Keanu smiled, but it was soft, delicate, like it might break if pushed too hard. I didn't know how much I was carrying, he said. Until yesterday. Until that scene. Anna placed a hand gently on his arm. You don't have to carry it alone. He looked at her hand, then back at her. I think I needed someone to remind me of that. Just then, the assistant director called them to the side. Hey guys, slight change in today's schedule. We're doing the interview scene early. Wardrobe's ready. Anna and Keanu nodded and made their way backstage. The scene they were about to shoot was different, quieter. Lighter, but deeply emotional. It was a moment where their characters opened up to each other in the middle of the story. No action, no big drama, just two people connecting. As Anna sat in the makeup chair, a thought came to her. What if they improvised? What if they didn't follow the script exactly? Something in her gut told her that real emotion couldn't be planned. And Keanu, he was already carrying so much truth inside him. Maybe it was time to let it speak again. She turned to the director and asked softly, Can we try the first take a little differently? Just let it flow? The director raised an eyebrow. Want? As you stay within the tone, sure. Anna walked onto the set, heart pounding. Keanu joined her seconds later. They sat opposite each other at a small table, the camera close, lights low. The crew was silent, watching. Anna took a deep breath. The cameras rolled. Do you ever feel like you're disappearing? She asked. Unscripted, Keanu blinked, surprised but didn't break. He looked down for a moment, then said quietly, Sometimes I feel like I've been quiet so long I forgot how to be loud. Or maybe I just don't think anyone wants to hear me. Anna leaned forward slightly. I do. His eyes met hers. And in that one look, everything poured out again. Grief, strength, hope, exhaustion. The words flowed between them. Raw, real, no. One yelled, cut. No one needed to. The scene ended naturally, like a candle burning out. Slowly, gently, when it was over. The director stepped out from behind the monitor, eyes wide. That was magic, he said. Don't touch it. That's the one. Anna smiled at Keanu. You didn't say much again? He chuckled softly. Maybe that's just how I speak best. Anna nodded. Well, I heard you. And for the first time in a long time, Keanu's silence didn't feel like distance. It felt like closeness. When silence breaks, a week had passed since that unforgettable scene. Since the moment Keanu's quiet truth poured into the camera, the energy on set had changed. Crew members spoke softer. The director gave more space. And Anna felt something stirring in her heart that she hadn't let herself feel in years. Connection. Not the surface kind. Not the ones that come and go between co-stars. This was deeper, silent, careful, like two people quietly holding hands in the dark without anyone. Knowing, Keanu had started smiling more. Not big, loud smiles, but those warm, honest ones that you only give when something inside is healing. But just as things seemed to calm, something broke the silence. It started with a knock. Anna was in her trailer. When a young production assistant came in, pale and shaky, "Anna," he said quietly, "there's something you should see." He handed her a tablet. On the screen was a gossip blog. The headline hit her like a slap. Anna and Keanu, real chemistry or rehearsed romance? Underneath were photos, private moments, her hand on Keanu's arm, him standing beside her in quiet comfort. A freeze frame of the emotional scene. Twisted captions underneath. Anna felt her chest tighten. Not because of the rumor. She knew the truth. And Keanu, he knew too. But the world didn't. And now, their silence had been dragged into noise. Just then, her phone buzzed. Message from her agent, "Call me now." Another from her mother. "I saw the pictures." "Is it true?" And then, one from Keanu. "Don't worry, we'll get through this." She stared at the last message the longest. No panic, no anger. Just calm. When she finally walked out of her trailer, the set felt different. Eyes followed. Her whispers floated through the air. And in the middle of it all stood Keanu, still, quiet, waiting. "Are you okay?" she asked when she reached him. He nodded. "It's not the first time. Won't be the last. But it's not fair," she said. "They're twisting everything. They always do." He looked tired, but not defeated. Like someone who had walked through fire before and learned how not to get burned. Director pulled them aside. "Listen," he said. "God, I don't care about the blogs, but the producers do. They're nervous. They don't want the film to turn into gossip fuel." "What does that mean?" Anna asked. "They want to adjust the script," he said carefully. "Pull back on some scenes between you two. Keep things ... neutral." Anna felt heat rise. In her chest. "You mean they want to erase the truth? They want to protect the film," he said. "Not you, not him, the film." Keanu didn't react. He just stared at the floor. "I'll do whatever you both decide," the director added. But they want an answer today. After he left, Anna turned to Keanu. "What do you want to do?" she asked. Finally looked up. "Do you remember what you said? That I don't have to carry it alone?" "Yes, then let's not carry their fear either." Anna blinked. "You're saying we fight it?" He nodded. "We don't let them take the truth. We filmed that scene because it was real. Not perfect, not clean, just real. And people deserve to see that." She smiled, tears building behind her eyes. "You finally said something loud." He laughed softly. Felt good. But just as they made their decision, more trouble arrived. Keanu's phone buzzed again. He read the screen. Then his expression changed. Anna stepped closer. "What is it?" He handed her the phone. A message from the hospital. "She's gone back into a coma. This time, it's worse." Anna felt the air leave her lungs. Keanu turned away, walking to the edge of the set. He stood there for a long moment, not speaking, not moving. Anna followed him, stopping just behind. "I'm here," she whispered. He nodded but didn't turn around. "You don't have to say anything," she added. "Just let me stand with you," and that's what she did. For the next 10 minutes they stood in silence. Not the cold kind, the sacred kind, where grief can breathe and healing can begin. Keanu finally turned to her, his eyes red, his voice low. "If she dies, I don't know what happens to me." Anna placed her hand over his heart. "You stay alive, 'cause that's what she'd want." He didn't reply. But his silence, it spoke volumes. Louder than words to days passed, but it felt like 2 lifetimes. The studio kept moving forward, lines rehearsed, cameras adjusted, makeup retouched. But underneath the normal rhythm, something had changed. Something had cracked. Anna saw it in Keanu's eyes, the way he walked a little slower, the way he smiled, but only with his mouth, not his eyes. And most of all, the way he stopped speaking unless he had to. Not even silence now, just stillness. After the message from the hospital, Keanu hadn't shared much. But Anna didn't push. She stayed close, without hovering. She let him carry his pain in the way he chose, while letting him know he didn't have to carry it alone. They shot simple scenes that week. Scenes where their characters passed each other in hallways, exchanged glances, shared short conversations. But the real story, the one behind the cameras, was far more powerful. It was Friday morning when everything changed again. Anna arrived early, holding a coffee in each hand. She knew Keanu wouldn't have slept well. Maybe not at all. She found him outside, sitting alone on a bench near the side of the building. He looked up as she approached. Black. No sugar, she said, offering him the cup. He took it with a quiet nod. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Keanu spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I almost didn't come today. Anna turned to him gently. You didn't have to. I did, he said. Because if I stay home, I start thinking. And when I think, I break. She placed her coffee down. Then don't think. Act. Just sit with me. They sat, side by side, hands resting on their laps, their shoulders almost touching. The morning air was cool. Few leaves drifted across the pavement. Nothing moved too fast. Finally, Keanu said something that caught Anna off guard. Do you think people can feel each other's pain? She turned slowly. Yes, I do. Even without saying a word. Especially then. Keanu looked at her, eyes tired but clear. I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you. Anna swallowed hard. You don't have to say that. I want to, he said. Because sometimes the silence needs to be broken. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A message from the director. Producers are here, upstairs. They want a meeting. About the script, and you too. Anna closed her eyes for a second, then stood. Let's go, she said. Keanu followed. The meeting room was quiet, but tense. 3. Producers sat at the long table, laptops open, folders spread out. The director stood in the corner, arms crossed. Clearly frustrated, the moment Keanu and Anna walked in, the tension sharpened. Thanks for joining us, one of the producers said, forcing a smile. We just need to have a quick chat about direction. Anna sat, her face calm. Keanu didn't sit. He stood behind her. We've had some concerns, another producer added. The film's emotional arc. It's a little too intense in some parts. Audiences might find it overwhelming. You mean honest? Anna asked, her voice flat. The first producer hesitated. Let's call it raw. We're thinking of adjusting the third act, softening the emotional threads, focusing more on plot than on character. Keanu's silence grew louder. We need a more universal appeal, the producer continued. Too much pain. Might limit that. Anna looked over her shoulder at Keanu. He hadn't moved. Then he finally stepped forward. Don't. Change it, he said quietly. The room paused. What you captured, he continued, wasn't acting. It was real, and real matters. People aren't afraid of truth. They're desperate for it. One of the producers raised an eyebrow. We're not trying to erase truth, Keanu. We're trying to protect the film's success. Success isn't numbers, he replied. It's impact. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Because his silence had been broken by something stronger - conviction, Anna reached for his hand without thinking, and Keanu let her. Look, the director finally said, stepping in. You wanted something different. You got it. The story, the way it was meant to be told. The producers exchanged looks. One finally nodded. We'll reconsider. But if the audience doesn't respond, they will, Anna said. Because we already did. After the meeting, they walked outside together. Neither of them said much, but there was a calm between them now. Not the fragile kind, strong kind. Anna stopped by a quiet patch of trees behind the studio and turned to him. How's your sister? She asked. Keanu hesitated and smiled faintly, still asleep. But the doctor said she's stable now. No worse. Anna exhaled. That's something. Keanu nodded. Yeah, it is. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. What's this? Anna asked. Something I wrote, he said. For her? What? But maybe it's also for you. He handed it to her and walked away. She opened it slowly. Sometimes silence is not the absence of words. It's the presence of love, too big to speak. Thank you for hearing mine. Anna folded the note, held it to her heart, and whispered into the wind. I heard every word. When silence becomes a voice, the final week of filming arrived like a quiet goodbye. The set was alive with movement props being checked, lights adjusted, sound cables running across the floor, but there was a different kind of energy in the air, not stress, not pressure, something gentle. It had been 2 months since they started the project. 2 months of long days, short nights, and moments that felt more real than the script they followed. And in that time, something had changed, not just in the film, but in the people making it, especially Keanu, especially Anna. They weren't the same people who had walked onto that set on the first day. Back then, Anna had arrived with quiet ambition and a heart still healing from old wounds. Keanu had walked in carrying a silence that was heavier than anyone realized. But now their silence had become something else. It wasn't hiding. It wasn't fear. It was presence. Deep listening. Presence. The kind that holds you up even when nothing is said. The final scene of the film was simple. Their characters after months of distance. After all the twists and heartbreak were supposed to meet at a quiet park bench. No dramatic speeches. No loud confessions. Just a moment. The director had told them, make the silence say everything. And they did. The cameras rolled. Anna sat first. Keanu walked in moments later, sat beside her. The sun was just beginning to set. The shadows stretched long. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their hands met in the middle of the bench, fingers brushing, eyes glancing. A shared breath, and then a single tear slipped from Anna's eye. Keanu noticed. He didn't wipe it. He just nodded. The kind of nod that said, I see you, hear you, and I'm not going anywhere. When the scene ended, the set stayed still for a long time. Even the crew didn't move. It was perfect. The director finally whispered, cut. Applause followed, but soft and sincere. Not the usual noise. Just a quiet honoring of what had been made. Anna stood, brushing away a second tear. She turned to Keanu. That was real, she said. He smiled. It always was. After wrap there. It was a small celebration outside the studio. A few decorations. Some music. Food trucks. Laughter. But Keanu didn't stay long. Anna found him by the edge of the lot, near a line of trees, watching the sky change color. She walked up beside him, leaving already. She asked. He nodded. Hospice called. They said, maybe tonight. Anna's heart dropped. You want me to come with you? She asked gently. Keanu looked at her. For a long time, he didn't answer. Then finally, would that be okay? Yes, she said. More than okay. They left quietly. No speeches, just 2 people walking side by side. They arrived at the hospital just after dark. Keanu's sister was resting, her breathing soft but steady. Machines beeped gently. Nurses moved with quiet care. Anna waited in the hallway while Keanu went in. She sat on a bench, staring at the wall, unsure of what to do with her hands. But soon the door opened. Keanu stepped out, his face pale, eyes filled. With something tender, she's still here, he said, but fading. He sat beside Anna then. To her surprise, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small, folded scarf. It was handmade, old worn. She knitted this for me when I was a teenager, he said. Told me it was magic. That as long as I had it, I'd never feel alone. Anna took it carefully in her hands. I want you to have it, he said. Keanu, she began, but he shook his head. Not forever, he said. Just for now, until I'm okay again. She nodded slowly, tears rising. Then I'll keep it safe. He leaned back against the wall, exhausted, and then, for the first time since she met him, he let his head rest gently on her shoulder. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Because finally, after all the silence, she understood. Months passed, the film was released. Audiences everywhere were moved by it. Not just entertained, but changed. Something about the quiet power between the two leads, the honesty in their eyes. The way they made silence feel like music had struck a chord. Interviews followed. Red carpets. Questions, and still Keanu stayed. Mostly quiet, but when one reporter asked him, "How did you make your character feel so real?" he looked toward Anna, standing beside him in a dark gown, eyes sparkling, and for the first time on camera. He answered without hesitation. "Because someone believed in me," he said. "And sometimes, that's all it takes." Anna smiled hard. Full, she squeezed his hand, and in that squeeze, in that moment, everything was said, no words needed. Because silence, when shared with the right person, becomes its own language.